How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. This is a show about pro wrestling. My name is Chad. With me, as usual, is Leonard. And this week, we are going to be returning to Unstable Stables. But it has been a minute since Leonard and I have recorded, although we've been posting, some of our back episodes, some stuff that we haven't had a chance to put out there. Our Unstable Stables. I'm very excited about this today because I think, Leonard, that you've assembled a good list and a good card. So why don't you tell everybody who we're covering?
Sure. So previously on an episode, we had mentioned doing the bloodline for an unstable stable. And doing that, which we will get to at some point, I also looked at some other wrestling families and looked at the Hart family. So that's who we're going to do today. We have 20 total, so 10 picks each. No women this time, as Natalia is really only the female wrestler of the family. Some of the other women, like Owen Hart's wife and Davey Boy's wife, have appeared on wrestling television, but really haven't done much. So this is, of course, not every member of the Hart family or those connected with them or the Hart Foundation or Calgary Stampede Wrestling, but it's a good representation. There's a lot of direct relatives and then some adjacent people who have decent careers. So Chad has the first pick because I had the first pick last time. Had to go back and look that up. And the draft board looks like this. So we have the patriarch, Stu Hart. Then we have all the sons of Stu, Brett, Owen, Bruce, Keith, Smith, Dean, and Ross. Three son-in-laws, Ben Bassarab, Jim Neidhart, Davey Boy Smith, Teddy Hart, grandson of Stu. We have Harry Smith, also known as David Hart Smith or Davey Boy Smith Jr., who's the son of Davey Boy Smith. Tyson Kidd, who's the husband of Natalia. Matt Hart, who's the son of Smith Hart. Roddy Piper, who is a cousin of the Hart family per Piper. Some people think that's a little ambiguous or maybe not correct, but Piper's always claimed that. Brian Pillman, who is a member of the Hart Foundation WWE. And I've always found it was kind of odd after, Owen and Pillman both kind of died tragically. I don't know if that was the link, but I always see him kind of showing up as being connected to the family where I wouldn't have really thought him having that strong connection. And then, of course, Brian's son, Pillman Jr. or Alexis King, is wrestling today. Then we have Johnny Smith, the kayfabe brother of Davey Boy Smith. And then so we could get to 20, Dynamite Kid, longtime tag partner of Davey Boy Smith and friend of the Hart family, wrestled for Calgary. So we're going to see these guys into a card. I will have the first pick on the card, and we'll go over that card when we get there. But Chad, you get first pick, as I said. So who are you going with in the Hart family unstable stable?
All right. So, I think that our first picks, I think it'll be interesting to see what strategy each of us go with here. The first pick should not be any surprise, though. I'm going to go with Brett as my number one pick.
De facto number one, if you didn't take him, it would probably be the biggest upset ever in unstable stable history. So, knowing that, who did I want? There's three names that I think you can go here. I've got a bold strategy. Let's see if it works for me, Cotton. I'm going Stu Hart.
Stu Hart. All right. So, all right, here is where it gets interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am going to choose Dynamite Kid.
Really? Wow, that is. I knew you were going to take him high. I didn't think I was going to get to him. But he was one that, of course, I wanted. So, as I said, there were three guys that I thought I could go with, and I'm just going to go in order as much as I think I could grab the other dude here. I'm going Owen Hart.
All right. Yeah, I had considered certainly picking Owen second. But I am then going to pick Davey Boy Smith.
Oh, I almost thought about taking Davey Boy just so you couldn't put together the Bulldogs. But already, you know what? I'm going to concede already. I think I'm done. Well, I'm going to take Roddy Piper.
Okay. All right. For my next pick, I am going to pick Brian Pillman, Senior.
Yes, I figured that's where you were going. He would have been my next pick if you hadn't taken him. So he totally would have been my next pick. You know what? I'm gonna go. Some people may think this is an odd pick here, but I don't think it is. I'm going with Jim Neidhart.
No, I don't think that's an odd pick at all. I'm, you know, not shocked that he's going high.
Mhm.
My next pick is this is where it starts to get tougher.
Yeah,
Um, I think for my next pick, I'm gonna go with Davy Boy Smith Jr.
he would have been my next pick. I really like D.H. Smith or David Hart Smith, whatever name he's going by. I saw him work once against Nick Aldis, and it was a really good match. And I talked to him for a minute and really enjoyed him. So yeah, he would have been my next pick here. So I'm gonna go with. You know what? I'm going with Lexus King or Pillman Jr., who I've also seen live.
All right. Well, no father son tag team for me then.
Mhm.
Um, all right.
Where
So
you got one you can do.
that yes. For my next pick, I'm gonna go with Tyson Kidd.
I almost took Kidd, but of course he's sort of the natural tag partner of Smith, and I didn't know what else I might do with him, so that's why I went with Lexus King. I'm going to go with Teddy Hart.
Okay. And for my next pick, I am gonna go with Bruce Hart.
I would have went with Bruce next. Bruce is usually considered after Brett and Owen the one to go with, and I'm going to go with Keith Hart. And he's usually like Keith and Bruce, of course, worked that one Survivor Series with their brothers. So I think they're the ones that most people know after Brett and Owen.
Right. All right. So I guess that means then that I'm gonna go with Smith Hart.
Love the name. I don't think I've ever seen Smith as a first name.
Yeah, that is unusual for sure.
And kind of interesting that Smith Hart, I believe, because I think he's the oldest, was before Davy Boy Smith was in the picture. So they could have wound up with a Smith Smith.
That's true. Yeah.
Davy Smith Smith. Um, I might as well just keep going down the list here. I'm going to go with Ross Hart.
All right. And I'll go with Dean.
I believe that is all, and I think there are more brothers than what we have on the list. I think they had like 87 children. So you went Dean. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with Matt Hart. I'll say it now. I was looking some stuff up about Matt right before coming on the air because I wasn't familiar with him, and it seems like he's been carving out a pretty decent career for him up in Canada.
All right. Well, because I don't know who either of these people are, so I'm just gonna go with Johnny Smith.
Just to complete the Smith, you have all the Smiths.
I do, yes, and and I you're gonna have to tell everybody who Ben Basarab is.
I again, Ben Basarab is a guy that I don't know a whole lot about. I did look up some stuff about him. I forget he's married, of course, to one of Stu's daughters. I forget which one, but he wrestled in Calgary Stampede mostly. Worked with the brothers. I forget which one of the brothers he tagged with a lot. So yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Ben Basarab. Other than he, was again a son-in-law and trained by the Harts, of course, and worked for Stampede a good bit.
He
So
could be world renowned, and you don't even know it, Leonard.
he might have been the best wrestler and never leave Canada. We don't know.
All right, so that concludes it, right?
Yeah, so we'll go recap the draft board here. So Chad winds up with Bret Hart, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, Brian Pillman, D.H. Smith, Tyson Kidd, Bruce Hart, Smith Hart, Dean Hart, and Johnny Smith. And I have Stu Hart, Owen Hart, Roddy Piper, Jim Neidhart, Lexus King, Teddy Hart, Keith Hart, Ross Hart, Matt Hart, and Ben Bassarab. And take a drink anytime we say Hart or Smith.
Yeah, seriously. All
So,
right.
card time. So, this is the card that we're doing. So, I'll go over the matches. We have a 1-versus-1 singles, a 2-versus-2 tag, a singles match for the British Commonwealth mid heavyweight title, a Hart Family Dungeon match, which is a one-on-one. WWE had done that at one point. I believe it was Owen versus Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in the dungeon, in the basement training center. A regular 1-versus-1 singles, a submission singles match, a tag match for the Stampede International Tag Team titles, and the main event for the Stampede North American Heavyweight title. So those are the matches. I get the first seed. The idea is here, do I throw someone out there that like a big gun and try to steal that first match, or do I go with maybe one of my lower guys? I am going to go with I'm going to predict I'm going to get my ass kicked in this one. I feel like I got the bad mojo on this one. I you know what, I'll throw Matt Hart. He's the younger guy. He still works. It feels like if you're going to do Hart Family Wrestling, that he would be in the opener. I'm going to do Matt Hart.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's make it interesting. Let's give Matt Hart Smith Hart. Do a little father versus son deal.
Yes.
And I think it'll be time for the father to take his son to the woodshed, Leonard.
Both these guys. I know a little bit more about Smith than I do about Matt. I would think that Smith might want to put his son over. That would be my main argument. That Smith would want to put his son over and make his son look good in the Hart Family Wrestling show. But if barring your laughter there, I don't think that means that you're going to buy that argument. So Smith, of course, being the more experienced grappler, even though, like I said, I think Matt has put together a pretty decent career. One thing I did read, I forget what it was called, but I guess it's some sort of crazy winter tour of the upper Canadian provinces. And he's like the only Hart family member to like complete the tour. So that says something about his toughness. But yeah, I mean, Smith's, the experience there, and I could see him not wanting to put his kid over as well. It's like, you're going to learn by me taking you out. So yeah, I'll give you Smith Hart.
Yeah, well, if we're talking about these guys in their prime,
Yes,
the younger Smith Hart might say, "Well, screw my son,"
yeah, yes, yeah. He's not getting old. I think Smith is past, so it would be standard Smith Hart. So yeah. We'll go with Smith. So that's one for you. Tag match. You get to seed first.
All right. So for this tag match, you are gonna get Dean Hart
Okay.
and Johnny Smith.
Dean Hart and Johnny Smith. Okay. It didn't work for me the first round. I'm going to see if it works for me this time. I'm going with, relatively speaking, the youth movement. I'm going to give you Teddy Hart and Lexus King.
Okay, Teddy Hart and Lexus King. So I really need to brush up on my Teddy Hart stuff. I certainly know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've seen a ton of his matches, more clips, if anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Lexus King, I certainly know a lot about. Predominantly his AEW stint, and he's still growing, still getting better, but he does certainly have talent. I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, in reality, I could have put Dean Hart in championship and he would have won because he's just that good. No, I have no idea.
I was about ready to say, give me examples of how good Dean Hart is. Give me some really
yeah,
good Dean Hart matches to
yeah.
watch.
Like, where's your proof? Um,
Yes.
yeah, this was just to try and get rid of some of these guys. So this is the tag match that they ended up in. I could have assembled. There's another tag team I could have used here, but
True.
in looking at the card, I don't know that I want to use all of my guys on tag teams. So,
Mm.
in that vein, I think that your tag team certainly has the more notoriety, and I think would probably have better chemistry. So,
Okay. Yeah, I would. Yeah, the reason I decided to put them together when I was looking at them there is because and again, this is all relatively speaking because we're doing everyone in their prime. But again, Dean and Johnny are from a different generation. Teddy's a little older now, but from what again I know of Teddy, he was more like Lexus King is now. Again, more of the thinner, lighter guy, faster, agility, doing some spectacular moves. So, that's kind of why I decided to put them together. So I will take that win. So
real quick, what
yeah.
do you prefer, Brian Pillman Jr. or Lexus King?
I'm getting used to Lexus King. I'm using that because it's less confusing than Brian Pillman Jr.
Confusing? How?
Let's get well for this, since we have Brian Pillman and Brian
Oh,
Pillman
for
Jr.
for our purposes,
For
sure.
our purposes, that's why I'm using Lexus King, because it's kind of confusing when you say Pillman. At one point, I told you I've done the long-term fantasy booking thing. I had Brian Pillman and Brian Pillman Jr. and it was really, and I had them as a tag team. So I had to say father, son, elder, Pillman Senior, like when I was writing the matches up. So for our purposes, I was just trying to make it more clear who I was talking about. So
No, absolutely.
yeah, but I would say again, name value. We've talked about this before. If you're the son of a wrestler, grandson of a wrestler, yeah, use the name. Michael McGillicuddy was Joe Hennig, and they remind you that every single time he wrestled. Then why not just call him Joe Hennig?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that before, but yeah, Lexus King for our uses. So next we have the British Commonwealth mid heavyweight title, which was a belt from the Stampede area, and I would kind of consider it to be like a lightweight kind of belt. So
Right.
given that, I'm going to pull out a big gun. I'm going to give you Owen Hart.
Ooh, okay. Um, in that case, I think I am going to give you Bruce Hart.
Okay, you know what, Bruce? I did kind of want to say it to influence anything. I almost said it. Bruce is usually considered like the third best brother
Yeah.
after, and I think I told you. I know I've told it on the show years ago, the Jim Neidhart story where he was wrestling in West Virginia, and he said, "When I come back, I'm gonna bring my tag partner Bret Hart." And I went
Yeah.
up to him and said, "You're bringing Bruce, right?" And he was like, "Bruce is a good worker. I like Bruce."
Yeah.
So, but again, conventional wisdom here. It goes Brett, Owen, and then you could probably argue between Bruce or Keith and a couple of the others. So I definitely think this could be a really good match. I thought you might give him Dynamite Kid, and that is a heck of a match, and that would be a heck of an argument on both of our sides.
Well, it would be because, to the best of my knowledge, those guys never faced each other, and that would have. Maybe they. Yeah, I don't think they did.
I would have to look that up. I mean, they probably were in the same room at the same time. You would
Yeah,
think. But if they ever worked, I don't know that. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say this is Owen. Owen beats Bruce.
yeah. I do think that this would be a nice competitive match. I think that I would see this going with like how Owen won against Brett at WrestleMania 10 with
Yeah.
like the roll up, the surprise. Bruce is the older brother, so I can see this program with Bruce, who always seemed this anyway, a little cocky, and Owen Hart doing whatever you really want him to do. And I could see Owen stealing this in maybe a quick way. And yeah, there's a lot of stories that they could have done with all the brothers in a perfect universe. But yeah, I would agree that Owen Hart wins this. So that's 2
Certainly.
for you, Leonard.
Yes, yes, and I don't know if I think I've heard this from Bruce Pritchard's podcast that Bruce Hart had pitched him being the one who would betray Brett
Yeah,
and wrestle him at WrestleMania, considering Bruce had never worked a day
right.
for WWE until that Survivor Series match.
Yeah.
So, in another world, Bruce Hart was WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So next we have the Hart family dungeon match. Again, this is going to be in the basement of the Hart house where they did the training. You can check out the match. That was that on a WrestleMania? They did the Hart dungeon match. It was a pay per view, wasn't it?
It was a pay-per-view.
It was a
Yeah.
pay per view at least. So you get the first seed this time. So who do you want in the Hart family dungeon?
All right. So looking at who I have left here, I am going to give you Brian Pillman.
Okay. I drafted this guy with the express thought of putting him in this match, and that is Jim Neidhart. Because Jim, well, you go first. I'm giving you Jim Neidhart.
So this would be an interesting match. I wonder if this would even be a clash of styles. Like a lot of times we talk about matches in this series, Unstable Stables. We talk about how it would be, oh man, this would be a good match, or whatever. I don't know if this would be, specifically in the dungeon. Like anybody who has seen that match, it was just it was very odd. It was fun because it was a change of pace, but like I'm trying to picture Jim Neidhart in this, atmosphere. Like, so I would pick Brian Pillman here, not just because he's my guy, but in the match that we saw in the dungeon, which was Shamrock and Owen Hart, because he kind of knew the terrain more and he was a little bit lighter and was able to use what was around him and all this kind of stuff. Owen Hart ended up, I think memory serves, being the victor there. And so I would pick Brian Pillman here simply because he's a little bit quicker and I think might have more of a penchant for the submissions that were legendary, mythic even in the dungeon. And certainly Jim Neidhart has the power advantage, but beyond that, I don't know how well he would fare in this match or singles matches altogether. He was always a tag guy. So
Now he did wrestle singles, of course. And
yeah.
my idea of picking him here was one, he's familiar with the dungeon. He trained with Stu. He was there. Pillman, to my knowledge, never trained with the Harts. So Neidhart knows the confines better. Also, being that's a very small, cramped space, Neidhart is a big dude. He's built like a tank. He's very low to the ground. Again, he does have the power advantage. I think in this type of match where Pillman doesn't have anywhere to go and can't use his speed and can't use his agility, that Neidhart is going to grab him and is going to, just ground and pound him. Neidhart did have, I forget what he did have a submission finisher. And I don't remember what it was off the top of my head now. I think it was called the Anvilizer. I think it might have been like a head vice. But my argument is kind of counter to you. I don't think that the fact that Pillman is lighter and can move more helps him, given the confines. I think
I only cited that because of what the memory I have of Owen in the match.
Well, the Owen Shamrock's a very much of a different matchup than Pillman and Neidhart. I think we've got a stalemate here because I think that you're locked into your reasoning. I'm locked into mine. Well,
Brian Pillman has won singles gold, if that sways you at all.
No, because this has nothing to do with a regular standard match in a ring.
That's true.
You know what? I'm calling this a draw.
All right, fair enough.
That's a draw. maybe they go the time limit. Maybe nobody just can't get a pin. I'm calling that a draw.
Stu comes down and puts them both in submission hold.
Yes, and then Stu beats them all, and I would get the point for that. So we have a tie. So next we have a singles match. I get the first thread here, and yeah, I think I kind of booked myself into a corner, but I'm going to take my last good shot, I think, at getting a point and give you Roddy Piper.
Okay, okay. So this is interesting that you're using Roddy Piper here. I did not expect you to use him here. And the people that I have left, it doesn't really make sense for me to give him any of my top guys, obviously.
Uh huh.
I think I'm going to give him Harry Smith.
Okay.
And my my reasoning here, what reasoning I would have in a situation like this, obviously Roddy Piper is a legend, is that Harry Smith is the more powerful of the two, and I think could have his way with Roddy Piper to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I was thinking about possibly Piper for the dungeon match. Again, Harry Smith, like I told you, I think he's a really good wrestler. I think he's probably very underrated, and I really enjoyed what I've seen out of him. However, Roddy Piper was one of the all-time great legends. He worked well with Brett the times that he did. I think this is definitely maybe one of those types of matches. Piper's definitely playing heel. Uh, I think maybe Harry gets an advantage early, but Piper cheats. He does the eye poke. He comes back. I just think the experience, the veteranness of Piper, his just prowess in the ring. I mean, he was never considered a ring general, but he was good. He could do a lot of stuff in the ring. So I think just on name value alone, this is Piper.
yeah, I mean that's probably fair to say. I mean, it's a straight up singles match, and although Harry Smith was very solid, as you said, it is Roddy Piper. So, and if you're talking about prime Roddy Piper, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard to argue against that. So,
Right. Okay. So next we have our submission match because usually we do a hardcore, but being the Hart family, I figure a submission made more sense. You seed first.
you have Tyson Kidd here.
Okay. And you have Ben Bassarat. I was trying to look up real quick if he had like a submission finisher, and I couldn't really find a list of his moves.
Yeah, I mean, Tyson Kidd, I think is a little underrated. I think
Mm-hmm.
that he kind of got a raw deal for various reasons, and he's still around. I think he trains.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I think he still occasionally works, but has worked as a trainer as well.
yeah, and I mean, I think that he's just easily the better choice here. As versed as I am on Ben Bassarab,
Right.
I would have to say that Tyson Kidd would get the upper hand here simply because he's made it to the big time.
True. I should have looked up more Ben Bassarat, but I don't think that would help me anyway. Okay, so his finishers were a flying body press and a running power slam, which has not helped me in a
No,
submission match at
no.
all. Kid probably, I would assume Tyson Kidd does a sharpshooter. I would assume.
I'm sure he had a submission of some kind. It was probably.
Yes. So, um,
I feel like they made every Hart connection do the sharpshooter to us.
right. Um, I'm just quickly looking here. Apparently, at some point, Bassarab lost a match to Brutus Beefcake. So, yeah, Tyson Kidd can have this.
You were looking just to make sure he didn't have some secret win over.
Like he beat Hulk Hogan and by count out and like the Maritimes because he owed the Hearts a favor or something. You
It
never
doesn't
you
work for me,
never know.
Bruce.
So okay, so Tyson Kidd gets that there. I think we can both agree, show stealer right there. Tyson Kidd versus Ben Bassarat.
Absolutely. That's why we put it in that spot.
All right, so I have booked myself into a corner. because you are getting Keith and Ross for the
Keith
Stampede
Ross.
International Tag Team titles, and I know what I'm getting.
Yeah, you were getting the British Bulldogs of Davy Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid, and yeah, I remember the Survivor Series match with the Harts in it, and Brett was obviously the general of that
Yeah.
match. But I mean, if Dynamite Kid and Davy Boy Smith are in this match, they are having their way with these Hart brothers, and Dynamite Kid hated everyone. So, like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you if you watch the clip of Mick Foley talking about his debut when he was Jack Foley,
Oh, yes. And I've seen that match.
yeah, the first hit that he took was a clothesline from Dynamite Kid, who, like, legit, if you were a rookie, it was trying to take your head off. So, so yeah, I mean, the British Bulldogs were a great tag team. They really, really were, and obviously, Dynamite Kid had his issues behind the scenes, but when it came to being in that ring, he was a show stealer almost all the time. And these two guys were really great together. We didn't talk about this, but you could have Natalia in your corner, Leonard, if I can have Matilda in the case of this match.
You know what? Deal.
I
Deal.
say that because it won't make any bit of difference.
No, it will not make any bit of difference. I think Natty would just go play with Matilda.
That's
You
now I'm
know,
picturing that in my head.
yeah, like she's petting, maybe she's got some treats in her pocket,
Yeah. Hey.
She would definitely play with Matilda. Yeah, I mean, I kind of was looking ahead and I was like, once you got both Davy Boy and Dynamite Kid, my original strategy was to prevent you from doing that. But you drafted Kid way earlier than I thought you were going to, and I kind of forgot that was the strategy to split them up. I knew I wasn't winning that match no matter who I threw against you.
Right.
So the only possible might have been Brett and Owen. But then, I
Well,
didn't have
that's
Brett.
that's true. Like, I will say this though, our our card in terms of quality is really all over the map. Like,
It kind of is. It kind of is not the match that the card that we thought it might be. Because I'm sure people were like, "You guys are idiots."
yeah, like if Stu was putting this card on, like he would have had to been frustrated to the point where he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to put myself in the main event.
Funny you should say that.
Yeah.
And of course, they win here. So we're tied at 3-3 with the one draw. So the main event for the Stampede North American Heavyweight title is Stu Hart versus Bret Hart.
Yeah. So this is, gosh, this would be interesting because, I'm sure if you got Brett to be a guest on our show, and we've had to tell him no many times, but
Yeah, he keeps calling. He calls me at like 3 in the morning. Leaves a 10-minute voicemail. I mean, I put my phone on do not disturb because of that.
well, you have to. I feel like if he were here, he would probably talk about how tough his father was,
Yeah.
and all that, and obviously all that is true. Here is the difference. Now, if this were a submission match, my answer would be very quick and abrupt, and I wouldn't have a leg to stand on really. But this is a straight up regular match, and in terms of submission holds, Stu is the master. Obviously, we've heard the stories of people screaming and from the dungeon and all that. But in terms of all around wrestling, I think that Brett on his own has the upper hand because Brett is, despite his grumpiness and sourness as an old man, is one of the best. And anytime I go back and watch one of his matches, it's hard. I'm hard pressed to think of a better in-ring storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Really, truly. Like there's Ric Flairs and Hogan's and all those people like that are bigger draws or whatever. But in terms of in-ring storytelling, Bret Hart was probably the best. So based on that, I would go with Bret. However, if you want to add to that, you made this argument earlier with Smith Hart, and I would make it here that if Stu were putting himself in the main event, I don't think there's any way he'd not want to put over his son. So
Mhm. Well, so what you're telling me is I probably should have put probably should have put Stu Hart in the submission match against Tyson Kidd and Ben Bassarab in the main event.
yeah, that would have been a good idea because you know what, it might have the tally would have been swayed for sure.
Yeah, I would win this 4-3. Man, if hindsight 2020, as they say it is. Yeah, I mean, again, that was my strategy because again, Brett has put over Owen and he's put over Davey Boy, and so one argument on my side would be the fact that he will put over family.
Oh yeah.
He's not against putting over family. So, but he had done that again with Stu. I figured, he's gonna feel bad about putting his dad over. Like not. I mean, I said the wrong way. His dad putting him over. That I think he would want to lose to his dad. That he would have the respect to want to lose to his dad. Stu would probably be fine with that. I think from what we know of Stu, yes, I'll take the win. So I think if this was a Calgary Stampede show, a Hart family show, Stu's booking, I think Stu wins, or maybe if Brett does win, he turns heel on his dad. He cheats in
Oh
some
wow,
manner.
that would be hilarious.
It would not be clean, I don't think. But the arguments that you do make is overall. So we're saying in a perfect world, we're saying in a fictional perfect world, in a show that maybe we're booking or a neutral party is booking, Brett would go over. Again, I think this is going to be very old school. I think it's going to be very traditional. I think it's going to be very mat based. I think it's going to be very submission based. I think Stu's going to bust out a bunch of submission holds. But I think, Brett, he says, is a superior storyteller. I think he's going to sell well, and he's going to use his speed. He's going to use his youth, even against a young Stu, if that's the scenario we're saying. Brett, of course, Stu, I would say, was stronger, but Brett faster, more agile. Again, has a different move set, a more modern move set. Sharpshooter's a great submission hold. While I think there's an extremely strong argument to make for Stu Hart to go over, I knew I was losing this from the start, and that's kind of why I seeded some of the earlier stuff the way I did. But now I wish I would have put Stu in the submission and gave you Ben Bassarab in the main event and sent everybody home disappointed.
Yeah, what a weird card that would have been. No, you make a good argument though, in favor of Stu, and that'd be an interesting question to ask Brett. Obviously he trained with his father from an early age, and his father probably always got the upper hand. But was there ever a moment when he got into his peak, that he would get the upper hand on his father? Did that ever happen? Because the amount of times that those two probably horsed around in the dungeon are probably endless, right?
Right.
So those are obviously family memories that Brett still has. But yeah, I mean, I think in this case you want to send fans home happy, and I suppose the easy thing to do would be have Brett win clean and hold up his dad's hand, and
Right. Then and they hug it out, and it's a mutual respect kind of thing. That's probably where it would be here.
Your idea of him turning heel on his dad would have been hilarious. Like, I can see, like, his mom in the front row, as she always was, getting upset or something.
Yeah. He kicks his leg out from under his leg. He pulls an Owen on him.
Oh man.
Oh, that was fun, and that did not go the way I thought it was going to go.
Well, I got pretty scared early on because I realized that, crap, like, I have these tag teams, but there's a lot more matches on here, and I'm getting beaten because of like all these mismatches that are early on in the card.
That became my strategy because I knew when we got to the top of the card, I was pretty screwed.
Well, no, that was fun, and
so you win 4-3 with the one draw.
All right, and I think that puts us overall tie again. I'd have to go back and count them all. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to check out some of the matches of some of these more unknown guys.
Maybe we can do a spotlight on Ben Bassarab.
We could do that, absolutely, and I will definitely see. Although I'm 90% sure that this didn't happen, Owen versus Dynamite, because I feel like we would have heard about that by now.
Yeah, even if the footage didn't exist, people would have talked about it. So who knows?
So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Let us know what you thought of our picks and who we thought would win these matches. If you agree or disagree, perhaps. Well, I know there are people out there that probably are more well versed in the Hart brothers and family than we
Yes.
might be. But let us know what you think. Check out our other videos: segment surgery, random match reviews, stupid questions. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts as well. And please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our content. For Leonard, my name is Chad, and we will see you next time.